Hello, my friends. Today I want to talk to you about one of the more troublesome and persistent problems in trying to build results of any kind with any framework or no framework at all. And that's that rush to goodness. That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Great to see you. Now, this week I want to dig in on something that I think is important to discuss once again, and that's the notion that mastery is a journey. Excellent results come over time. It's through the consistent application of consistent but small effort that meaningful and lasting change is achieved. That's point blank. Let's dig in on why that is, but first, let's take a moment to remember why we're here. To create an elite tribe of leaders who truly serve their clients and communities by doing what matters and what works, relentlessly chasing value and excellence like a badass. There's so many resources out there about what you need to do to be agile, but we're focused on who you need to become in order to lead teams. So let's hammer down those fundamentals to create a truly unique and powerful force in this industry. And remember, if this helps you, tell your friends. You can also find us in the Badass Agile Listener Lounge on Facebook. Go ahead and click the show notes below. All right, well, if slow and consistent, steady efforts win the day, then how come we aren't all experts at doing it? If that's the formula for success, why can't we do it? Well, it's human nature to be impatient. The reality is this. When we look at a goal, and it's very, very far in the distance, think about losing 20 pounds. Or learning a new language. There is nothing you can do to achieve either of those things in a day. We're well aware that results are going to have to come over time. And by the way, putting off good behavior, good disciplines, and expecting the results on the last day after a Herculean application of right thinking and right practice is not what I mean by results coming over time. You have to do smaller things each and every day that build up and multiply into new habits, new ways of being, and ultimately results. Now, to those of us who practice this way already, this is great news. Because when the expectation is smaller changes, smaller application of will, then it makes it easier to avoid procrastination. We're not expecting you to do miraculous things on day one. We're not expecting perfection at any given point. We're not expecting huge Herculean lifts and herniating yourself at the gym. We just want small, incremental improvements in lifestyle, tiny, tiny changes to the choices that you make and the actions that you take. So once again, if we know this, what goes wrong? Well, usually fear sets in and forces us to overplan or overdo. We get worried that we could do this, go all in, commit to it, choose the right behaviors every day, execute our will every day, and it won't get better. When that fear sets in, we start overplanning, overthinking, over-researching, getting anxious, and then ultimately we procrastinate and we choose not to act at all. We seek validation and certainty, even in the early phases, when we know full well that certainty isn't possible. So we research and compare, we overthink and double-check, and ultimately we get steered out of our own conviction. We undo our decisions to move, to execute, to begin, and that never serves us. The other thing that can go wrong is our natural inborn tendency to be impatient causes us to change or quit long before we should. We don't see results. We think, this isn't going to work. It's too far out before I get all my cash and prizes. What if this doesn't work? I can't stay in the game. We got to try something else. We got to see what else might work. Let's cancel and halt, pull the troops out, we're done. See, one of the reasons why we have to advertise that results come slowly over time is to help people overcome their desire to get results overnight, because they never come overnight. It's not like checking your notifications on your cell phone or eating that piece of cake. You don't get the instant gratification. You don't get the dopamine hit. We don't get the satisfaction. We don't get the win. So we get frustrated and we get scared that we're on the wrong path. And fear of doing the wrong thing is very, very powerful. Now here's another side effect of failing to realize that results come through consistent application over time. We tend to set the scope too big. Isn't that true? Think about it. When we fail to admit how long it takes to make massive change, we tend to want to promise the moon. And when we promise the moon, especially if it's wrapped up in a ball of complexity, we don't want to face how long it will actually take to deliver it. We're overly optimistic, we assume that we can do what nobody has done before, and we fail to account properly for the bigness of the thing, the complexity of the thing, and then we underestimate how long it will take to actually do it. But when you switch your mindset to one of results coming slowly over time, you're more likely to take that complexity and break it into higher value chunks to properly decompose a problem into the most valuable elements and the most effective solutions. And when you do that, and you begin to deliver in that way, you start racking up wins. And the added advantage of there is that when you see the pounds come off half a pound at a time, when you see muscle growing in very, very tiny, almost imperceptible increments, when you see your results improve, when you see the numbers go up, that inspires and fuels future success. But not just future success, staying true to the long game. In fact, I'll go so far as to say this. When you're committed to, or some people might call it resigned to the fact that results only come slowly over time, you learn the truth, which is that results are guaranteed to come slowly over time. When you decouple success and achievement with a need to go fast, with the need to see proof immediately, otherwise you bail and abandon it or get skittish, then it becomes way more difficult to actually fail. And I think that's because we learn to sail ahead with certainty, that if we're comfortable with and connected with our ability to do, to learn, to grow in smaller but way more meaningful increments, we know that everything will work out in the end, that the results always come. So let me ask you this. How could you implement this in your teams today? Well, trusting that results come slowly over time means that you do fewer high-energy, big-bang, upfront activities. It means that you don't seek perfection at any given moment, but realize that you're always at some point on the curve. But that curve is always slowly trending upwards. It means that you need to ask for this commitment from leadership and stakeholders. And easily one of the best ways to do that is to point at projects that have run prior, that have delivered results, but did it slowly over time, to demonstrate that the products that assumed they knew everything that needed to be done before they started producing ended up being the ones that were less adaptive, less agile, and more likely to experience catastrophic failure. It means that you as a leader have to resist the push down from above to get better and better in an unreasonable time frame. And in fact, this is where the argument that we should resist measuring real productivity in terms of output per hour or story points per sprint. It means you need to change the way that you communicate timelines, outcomes, and results. And it means opening up to the truth that when you first start something, when you're building a new product, when you're working with a new team, you don't know anything. It doesn't matter how many times you have done this before. The process is slow, it's based on continuous learning, and it will get better slowly over time. Folks, I hope this one helps you. Feel free to let me know. You can reach out at badassagile.com or find me on Twitter at badass_agile. I thank you for joining me once again, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, stay badass.